Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a whole stack of sources, game wikis, Reddit threads, you name it, and we're diving into something a lot of mobile gamers deal with every day, the world of guild management. Or maybe the challenges of it.
That's right. We've looked at discussions from players in games like The Tower, Summoner's War, AFK Journey, basically trying to get to the heart of what makes running a guild, or even just being in one, sometimes so tricky.
Yeah, our mission here is to really pull out the main problems people are talking about, and also, crucially, how players are finding ways around the game systems themselves.
And as we're talking, try to picture this. You're actually in the game, okay? You're scrolling through that guild search list, seeing all the names, the IDs, maybe how many members.
Right, but finding a good one, or getting people into yours, it often feels like wading through, I don't know, just endless pages, right? And so many look empty. That's kind of the backdrop here.
Exactly. So let's start with the basics. What even are guilds in these games, according to the sources?
Okay, yeah, the foundation.
Well, looking at the Tower's wiki, for example, they're usually a feature you unlock. You hit a certain point in the game, boom, guilds are available.
And you can make one or join one.
Pretty much. Create your own or join one that exists. There's almost always a member limit too. The Tower mentions 30 players as the cap.
30 seems pretty standard. And getting into one, how does that work?
Sources lay out a few ways. Creating your own usually costs some game currency. Joining, that can vary.
Like, just click join.
Sometimes it might be open, no approval needed, or it might require a leader to say okay. Or it could be totally private, invite only.
Ah, and those invite only ones, they don't even appear in the public list. Right?
Exactly, the Tower Wiki mentions that. So how you set it up affects if people can even find you easily.
Okay, so visibility is baked in from the start. But why bother? What's the point of joining a guild?
Well, there are definitely concrete perks. The Tower Wiki talks about things like a special guardian feature you get access to. But really, the big thing highlighted everywhere, especially in player discussions, is rewards. Collective rewards.
Right, working together for loot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, members do their daily stuff, it contributes to weekly guild goals, and everyone gets tokens, gems, items, stuff you want. And maybe secondary for some, there's the community aspect. Chatting, helping each other out. The Tower Reddit mentions the chat feature.
Rewards and community. Sounds great on paper. But here's where the sources seem to suggest things get messy. Finding people. And keeping them active enough to actually get those rewards. That sounds like the real headache.
Oh, absolutely. You see it constantly. Summoner's War Reddit, the Tower Reddit. Doesn't matter the game. Finding and keeping active players is a persistent problem.
Don't the games usually have some kind of tool for this? Like that searchable list we talked about?
They do, yeah. The Tower Wiki mentions one. But listening to players, like on the Tower Reddit, the feeling is, well, using just that in-game lift to fill your guild. It's really hard. Frustratingly hard.
Why though? If there's a list, shouldn't it work?
Well, several things are going on based on what players say. First, just sheer numbers. So many people get excited and start their own guild.
Ah, so loads of tiny, maybe inactive guilds cluttering things up.
Exactly. And second, this is a big one, especially noted for the Tower, the way the list is often sorted. It seems like it's frequently sorted by the guild's internal ID number.
ID number, not like activity or members.
Right, so when you, the player, are scrolling here, remember that visually you're seeing tons and tons of near-empty, possibly day-old guilds first because they have lower IDs. Finding the established active ones becomes this massive chore.
Oh, wow. So the tool exists, but it's almost useless because of how it presents the information. You're just scrolling past digital tumbleweeds.
Pretty much. And then there's this sort of self-fulfilling problem the Tower players talk about. People looking to join a guild, they understandably want one that looks active already, maybe 15 members or more.
Because they know that guilds more likely to actually hit the reward goals.
You got it. Which means those newer guilds or smaller ones trying to grow, they struggle like crazy to get those first crucial members. It's really tough to gain traction.
It's that classic cycle, isn't it? Need members to look active, need to look active to get members.
Nailed it. And then pile on top of that the fact that the in-game tools are often just basic. Players on, say, AFK Journey Reddit are crying out for better options.
Like what?
Things that seem obvious, like letting guilds write a proper description, state their requirements clearly, better filtering options, not just searching by name.
So the in-game stuff is often falling short. Where do people actually find success then?
The pattern in the sources is clear. They go outside the game, Reddit, Discord, Those platforms pop up again and again in Summoner's War and the Tower threads as the places for serious recruitment. Players are building their own systems because the game doesn't provide good ones.
Okay, so recruitment is tough, but let's flip the coin. What about keeping the members you do get? Inactivity seems like the other big monster.
It really is. Managing inactivity and often, having to remove inactive members.
Yeah.
It's just a constant task for guild leaders. You see this discussed for Summoner's War, for the Tower, everywhere.
Why is it such a big deal? Can't you carry a few inactive players?
Well, yes and no. Most games have some flexibility. But remember those collective rewards. They depend on collective effort.
Right.
In the Tower, for example, sources say you need 750 contribution points total for all the weekly chests. If a really active player gets maybe 35 points, well, do the math. You need around 22 genuinely active players hitting those kinds of numbers consistently.
Okay, so if your active count dips below, say, 20 reliable people, the whole guild starts missing out on the top rewards.
Exactly. That's what players in the Tower and AFK Journey communities seem to experience. A few empty slots or less active people might be fine, but too many, and it hurts everyone's progression.
So leaders need to manage this, but how easy is it for them to even tell who is inactive or how inactive they are?
And that's another huge frustration you see, especially from Summoner's War players. Tracking specific participation, like did someone do their Guild War attacks? Did they join the siege? Did they hit the Labyrinth boss? It often involves really manual methods.
Manual, what do you mean?
Leaders talk about taking screenshots, writing down names, keeping track on spreadsheets or Discord bots outside the game. Because the game itself often doesn't give them a clear, easy list saying, here's who contributed what.
Wow, that sounds less like playing a game and more like middle management.
It can be. There's a strong desire for better in-game stats, better logs. Some Summoner's War players even mention using third-party tools, like something called swag, just to get a handle on who's doing what.
That's a serious commitment for leading maybe 30 people in a mobile game.
It absolutely is. And you see different guild philosophies because of it. So we're super strict. Miss your attacks, you're out.
Yeah.
Gotta get those rewards.
Makes sense.
Others are more laid back, It's a game, not a job. And the reward system usually has some buffer. But even for casual guilds, the core problem of tracking and managing activity is still there.
Okay, so we've got these big hurdles. Recruitment tools are often bad, the lists are hard to use, tracking activity is a pain. What are players doing about it? What are the workarounds people have figured out?
We see some really clever player-driven strategies. One big one, especially for guilds that are shrinking, is merging.
Like two guilds combining into one.
Yeah, exactly. Players in Summoner's War and the Tower talk about this. Two guilds each have maybe 15 active members. They combine forces. Suddenly they have a full active roster hitting all the goals. It's practical.
Consolidating their strength. Makes sense.
And like we said before, using those external places, Reddit, Discord is just vital. Building connections there, actively recruiting, it's often way more effective than the in-game search button.
You mentioned a specific example earlier from Summoner's War, the Ascendrum Guild. What was their story?
Right. This one really shows the effort involved. Ascendrum wasn't just posting looking for members on Reddit. Apparently, someone from the guild used a whole separate secondary account.
Like an alt account.
Yeah, an alt account to go into the game and directly message players they found stuck in those dead guilds. The ones with one leader and nobody else.
Whoa, like sending out rescue parties?
Kind of. Actively trying to pull active players out of inactive situations because the normal recruitment tools weren't cutting it. It's pretty extraordinary dedication.
That really highlights how broken the system can feel if players have to resort to that level of, guerrilla recruitment.
It does. Other tactics. Some guilds just set themselves to auto-join, let anyone in, and then the leaders do regular cleanups, kicking the inactive ones that comes up in the tower talks, and just, using whatever chat channels exist in the game to promote themselves, however limited.
And does anything help actually keep players once you find them?
The sense you get, especially from Summoner's War chats, is that building a real community within the guild is huge, often using Discord for better chat and organization. If people feel connected, feel like they belong, like their contribution matters to people they know, they're way more likely to stick around and stay active.
So it comes back to that social element being key for retention. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What's the overall player experience with guilds like, based on all this? Sounds kind of intense.
It's definitely a spectrum. For some players, guilds are fantastic. They love the community, getting help, answering newbie questions. That positive side comes through in the tower discussions.
But the flip side?
To others, it feels like pressure, like a chore. That need to contribute constantly can suck the fun out of it and make it feel like an obligation instead of a game. The social aspect isn't always a plus for everyone.
And you mentioned technical issues too sometimes.
Yeah, especially when guild features are new. Early posts for the tower mentioned bugs, people having trouble joining, leaders having trouble managing things. Just added frustration on top of everything else.
So even though the game design might allow for some wiggle room, like you don't need 30 out of 30 perfect players for max rewards.
Right, there's often a buffer.
The core challenge of finding enough active people, seeing who they are with limited tools, and keeping them engaged in a positive way. That really defines the experience for a lot of players.
It's this constant balancing act, this management burden that falls heavily on players' shoulders.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, what's the big takeaway about guild management from these sources?
I think it shows that being a guild leader or even just an active member trying to make a guild work forces you to wear a lot of hats. You're not just playing the game, you're an external recruiter, a community manager, sometimes even a data analyst, all because you're trying to compensate for where the game's own systems fall short.
It really makes you think about your own experiences, right? If you've played these kinds of games, have you felt that grind of scrolling the guild list, felt that pressure to contribute, been stuck in a guild that just fizzled out?
Chances are, yeah, you've probably encountered some version of these challenges yourself.
Which leads us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. When you see players putting so much effort, creativity, and time into managing these social structures outside the tools the game actually gives them, what does that tell us? What does it say about how well developers are supporting the social communities that spring up, often organically, in their games, especially ones that might have started as more solo adventures? Are the tools keeping pace with the players?